Welcome to Tales of Ted DeGrazia, a Big Blend radio podcast covering the art, life, and career of Southwest artist Ted DeGrazia, as well as the current events and exhibits happening at DeGrazia Gallery in the Sun. It's a 10-acre National Historic Landmark located in Tucson, Arizona. So everyone, you know it is the fourth Sunday here on Big Blend Radio, and that means we're going to DeGrazia Gallery in the Sun. And this is an awesome, awesome destination. It is over 10 acres. It's a National Historical Site, all preserving the history and art of Ted DeGrazia, who is very famous as and known as one of the world's most reproduced artists. And we've got Lance Labor, the Tucson dude, back on the show. He's going to tell us a little bit about the current exhibits, but also there's a big birthday bash coming up in honor of Ted DeGrazia. So how are you doing, Lance?
I'm doing good. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. It's exciting because I always think about Ted DeGrazia on Flag Day because he was born on Flag Day, and I kind of feel like if he could have his own flag, he would do it, wouldn't he? He would, in a good way.
He made his own flag. He did.
What?
He's got his own flag. He made
Wow.
like a sunburst flag. Yeah.
See, I knew it. He would do, but a sunburst. So he's like honoring the desert and the desert people.
Yeah, like a sun sign. Yeah.
So how is it in Tucson? I've heard your weather has been like cooler over the spring than usual, and now things are heating up. I did an interview just a day ago about Yuma, Arizona. It was getting into the hundreds over there. But how is Tucson? Are we heading into summer or what?
Oh yeah. We're already here. It was 100 this week.
Wonderful.
101, something like that. It's already probably 95 right now.
Nice.
So yeah, it's we're getting there.
Yeah, I know other people may be going, what do you mean nice and wonderful? But like Nancy and I miss that baking feeling of being out in the sun. I don't know. We just do. When you travel full time across the country, and right now it's in the 50s where we are. So, a little different, Lance. It's just a little different.
Yeah,
and when you see the sun,
certainly you could send some of that our way.
well, you send some of yours our way, but we're just going to,
Okay.
we're on our way west. We're on our way home to Tucson for a little bit. So, it's a slow ride as we go through, and we have all these things we're doing on the way, but, we can't wait to get back and come back to the gallery. Last time we missed you when we were there, our plans got tossed around, and sometimes you just can't control everything. I try, but apparently, the world says, get over it. You can't control things,
Yeah.
But, it happens. It happens. But the gallery, this is a cool respite. That's one thing we always talk about in summer is the gallery in Tucson. If you're midday as a traveler or local, go to the gallery in the middle of the day because it's nice and chilled out inside and you can go look at cool art. So that's a good way for people to, when people travel through the desert, to have a nice place to go in the middle of the day when it's really hot.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
Be nice
if
people did that.
They do, Lance. It's, and you've got two new cool exhibits. I know we've talked about them, but I think this is so exciting about DeGrazia's birthday. 116 years old he would be if he was still alive,
Right, right.
Wow. So he's really entering the world of art history now. When we think about that, over a decade, wouldn't that be not a decade, a century? He's over a century now.
He is 116. I don't know why we picked that. It wasn't it wasn't 115, but
well, you guys always have cake and ice cream on his birthday, but
we do. We're actually serving food this time. We're going to have like a little buffet of Mexican food, while it lasts. So we should see a lot of people that night. We're also doing our whiskey thing again.
Ooh.
For that
like
weekend,
that.
our promotional whiskey. So people can come and buy whiskey and taste it and have some Mexican food, and it should be a really nice event.
This is awesome. So everyone, you can go there at DeGrazia.org is the website. But I love that because he loves his whiskey and his Chivas Regal as well. But that you guys are having this event. It's 116. It's a Saturday, which is, I think, why it's so cool. It's easy for those
It is a Saturday.
Yeah. So June 14th, everyone, is DeGrazia's 116th birthday. But also while you're there, this weekend is Memorial Weekend. And you have a memorial to him at the gallery too on the grounds. He's resting there. I don't know if
he is resting. Yes.
I don't believe he's resting though. I honestly just have a hard time thinking he's resting. I don't think he's a personality to rest. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, but this Memorial Day, Monday, will be 8 years since we had our fire. In our little church, it's the 8-year anniversary of the fire. So time is really flying on.
Are you kidding me?
No,
8 years?
No, it was Memorial Day of 2017. So yeah, it's 8 years, which is really hard to believe.
Don't we all feel younger now, Lance? I mean, that felt like maybe, I don't know why, but like 4 or 5 years ago. But then, the restoration that went in, I mean, that was a big deal to get it restored and keep it still historically significant, right? Because you don't want to alter what he's done. And at the same time, you got to fix it and then not mess up the art that was there no matter what, because even the fire is part of the history now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the place is beautiful. They restored it really nicely, but, I just mentioned that it was, kind of a significant date for us.
Sad. That was I think, a very traumatic thing for the gallery. I think so.
I agree.
It was. I mean, I remember talking to you, right after, and it's heartbreaking, because it's, it's history, but, people are still allowed to go there, right? And still go in and
of course. I mean, it's all been completely restored except for, the murals that were destroyed. I mean, there's still stuff on the walls. There's a lot of stuff we saved. But, besides that, it's beautiful. It looks the same.
I know.
People
we've been in there
all the time.
People do go to the altar. That's what I think I should clarify. There's an altar in there, like you would have in any mission church, there's an altar and people use the altar, and it's part of Tucson's life. I would say that it is. That's why I talk about, like, we were talking about road trips over the last few days. It was National Road Trip Day on Friday, and we talked a little bit about Tucson. And I said, well, you can't go to Tucson without going to DeGrazia Gallery. And so many people do travel through Tucson, even though it's hot and warm in the summer. But so I say this is a place to pull off when you go to Tucson. Obviously Saguaro National Park is a big thing. I could do a show every week and never cover Tucson. It's a gastronomy capital of the world, the UNESCO gastronomy capital, the first one, which I think is huge. But Lance, where would you say when people come on a road trip through Tucson, go to the gallery, where would you say they should eat that's near you? Like, because, you go to the gallery, it's like, let's go get some lunch or some food and talk about the art. Where would you recommend?
Well, there's some good Mexican food around the area. There's a place called El Charro.
Oh, yes.
And there's a place called El Cisne.
Oh, I haven't done that.
So, yeah, no, those are a couple of places that are really close to us that, people usually when they're coming through from somewhere else, they're looking for Mexican food, so.
Yeah, and you guys, it's different because it's mostly Sonoran, right, style. So, yeah. El Charro is fantastic. Had that. Now, and lodging wise, I was recommending people to go to Los Ventana. We stayed there, Nancy and I. This is before we moved there. It was wonderful. not too far from the gallery, and Hacienda del Sol kind of has that real
Right.
old school
That's a great place.
That's honestly like one of the, if you want to stay in a Southwest, I mean, when I think about the gallery, right, and the way the adobe is and everything, and the building and the architecture, I'd say stay at Hacienda del Sol for that same feeling. You know what I mean? If you really want to experience the Southwest when you're in Tucson, and they have beautiful gardens like the gallery does. You're not far from Tohono Chul Park. Is my memory right here? Because it's been a little bit since we were home.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Tohono Chul Park is
everything's
a good
kind of in
place
the
too.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like old Tucson, I would think, for me. But you're a local, like, born and raised. Wouldn't you say it's kind of old Tucson, even though there's like development going on near you and around you, but it's kind of, there's still old Tucson.
Yeah, a little bit. The north side of Tucson, the northwest side of Tucson is kind of the newer side, and it's continually growing. So they're always adding new stuff. It's not like South Tucson or some of the older areas of town.
Yeah, I do like that area too. It's just, Tucson, it's spread out, and you think there's 1 million people there, right? Over 1 million, but it doesn't feel like it to me because everything's spread out and you've got the mountains surrounding, and I don't know, it's just like a comfortable big town to me. Not,
Yeah, it's a big town with a little town flavor. It still feels like a small town sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's like, it is a city downtown and everything, but, I think people are trying to save and keep and preserve these iconic places, and I would say definitely, DeGrazia Gallery. Weren't you guys on the National Geographic map that was made that was a decade ago, right? The National Geographic.
You mean that we're the National Historic Register?
Yeah, the register. But then there was that map that National Geographic did of like where are places in the country and the world that have sense of place of who and what. Like you go to a place and it says this is Tucson, this is this place, and you guys were on. It was like a geo map basically. And of course, National Geographic is that, but the DeGrazia Gallery, and I remember it was on part of the sessions for Southern Arizona. I was in some of the discussions on that with, I can't remember him, but he is related to Zorro. No kidding. Joaquin Murrieta, I believe, is his name. Just came out of, I don't know, but I know it's Joaquin, but he's related to Zorro, and Zorro has many grandkids. So I'm just saying he's one of the many of Zorro grandkids, great-grandkids or something. But Zorro was like a legend in Mexico, but also real. You know what I mean? It's like he got tagged with that name, like the Robin Hood, even though he was actually a real person, but not as, like what the stories came off of him wasn't always true, But they were working on this National Geographic map series. This was maybe 15 years ago. And I remember DeGrazia making on that list because when you go to the gallery, because of DeGrazia's connection to the people and to the land, it's you don't go to DeGrazia Gallery and not feel like you're in the Sonoran Desert. It's real compared to something new and shiny. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
I'm not knocking anything new and shiny, but it just made it was about, there's a saying, a word, biophilia. And so biophilia is like if you go in the woods and you feel connected, but it's a connection to the place and everything. DeGrazia does that with art. When you go into the gallery, you're connecting with the cultures of the Southwest, like deeply. And it's, the Native Americans, it's the Mexican people, it's even the nuns, the priests. He really dedicated his life, I think, to telling the story of the Southwest. He did.
He did. That is true. I let me mention too. A couple of weeks ago, we went up to Phoenix for the 100th anniversary of Arizona Highways magazine,
Oh,
and
wow,
they
yeah.
were inducting DeGrazia and several other people, mostly photographers that had contributed to Arizona Highways, in their Hall of Fame. So it was a really big event. It was held at Taliesin West, which was Frank Lloyd Wright's winter home
Right.
in Scottsdale. Just gorgeous, and it was just a really nice event, and they really honored a lot of people and honored DeGrazia, so it was very nice.
Oh, that's
That was
wonderful.
one of the.
Oh, that's so fantastic that he gets to be honored because he should be, as an artist.
Well, he was in 75 or 80 of their magazines, and he was on 40 or 50 of their covers, and he was a big part of Arizona Highways. They were a big part of his success, and he was a big part of their success.
Yeah, I remember you did
So
an
anyway,
exhibit.
it was a very nice thing, huh?
I remember you had an exhibit with that. Like a few
Yes,
years ago,
yes,
you had an exhibit
yeah, a
about
couple of years ago. That's right.
with his history
He
of the
did do
Arizona
that.
highways. There was a good collaboration between the two. They worked
Oh,
together, and
absolutely.
yeah,
There was their editor, whose name was Raymond Carlson, really helped DeGrazia. They helped each other, and then Raymond Carlson got sick. He got ill, had some weird disease, and was kind of in a nursing home. And DeGrazia was so thankful for what Raymond Carlson did for him that he painted a couple of paintings, and they made prints of these paintings, and every penny that was earned from the sale of these two prints went directly to Raymond Carlson's care. So DeGrazia was a very kind man, and he gave back to the people that helped him.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think even when you look at his art, he was making sure people didn't forget who the people of the Southwest were. When you look at how Tucson has grown, right? It's such a popular city. It's a green city in that it's like, to me, it's a garden city. Like there's green, there's saguaro cactus everywhere, but there's flowers, and it's got 5 seasons, and there's always beauty in Tucson, right? Even in the dead of summer when there's no monsoons, there's still a beauty to it. You wake up in the morning, you see these sunrises, and then you think of all the Native American history and culture of how they have survived and thrived in the landscape, right? And the Mexican people, and just, I think DeGrazia really wanted to make sure, this is just my opinion, going to the gallery and learning about him over all these years, is that he saw Tucson's growth and kind of had this, a little bit of, as much as he loved the people, and like we always talk about Padre Kino. I'm not going to say Father Font. I just did, though, right? Padre Kino. I always get the two mixed up. But so he had all of this respect and legacy for the people. But I think, to me, going through the gallery and looking at his art all the time, and then the changing exhibits that we talk about, he kind of knew Tucson was growing, and he didn't want these stories to get swallowed up in growth. Does that make sense with how Tucson is growing? And then just,
Yeah, he
I don't want to get into that part, but
Well, he didn't like the fact that Tucson was getting so big. He felt crowded. He had a small gallery in the middle of Tucson, and it got too busy, and he ended up going up north and buying the 10 acres in the Catalinas, and he was good for a long time. And now that, his gallery is surrounded by the bank and, by 7-Eleven, and I'm sure it was driving him crazy. He didn't like the huge growth. He didn't like being crowded in.
Oh my God, you do have a 7-Eleven
So who knows?
out there.
He might have just gone somewhere else. He might have gone up to the Superstition Mountains again. and
Burn
it
more
didn't happen,
paintings.
but
Burn
yeah,
more
burn more
paintings that he
paintings,
did.
right?
Well, that's
Right.
amazing. That's still a story of defiance. Like, you're not going to tax me on my work that I haven't sold yet. That was crazy.
That's
It's like,
correct.
and he didn't want um, his family to have to pay it, if he's passed on. But when you think about it, I think that's what I'm getting to is when you go to DeGrazia Gallery, and we lived in Tucson for a number of years and visited as visitors before we moved there, and now as, on the road full time. When we come home, it's still home, but we're always like, oh, Tucson has changed. So when we go to the gallery, you forget the 7-Eleven, and not knocking the 7-Eleven. We all need them once in a while. But when you're at the gallery, because you can still see the mountains, and you're immersed in his art and the adobe and just the grounds, I think you forget how big the city is. You're just like, you're in the desert with the people. And I think he wanted that. I kind of feel like he had this vision of, you need a spot where people can go. And you're right. Maybe he would say, okay, screw this, I'm moving. But I think he kind of knew. That's just my own thing. I don't know. But his art shows it.
Well,
It is,
it was inevitable. Tucson, it was inevitable that Tucson was going to grow. And it still is, a lot of people are moving here from California. People are sick of California for whatever reason. And, there's lots and lots of people that are moving here.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's
It's
still
like
growing fast.
Austin, Asheville, North Carolina, all these cities that we go through.
Right.
It's just like, oh, people peg their, like, pin the tail on the donkey, we're going. And I'm like watching people build a house in like a quarter of an acre. Like, oh, there's a little piece of grass, let's put a house in it. And I'm like, dude, it's like, what are you doing? It's just, there's so much land in this country, like, but people do it. That's what we do. But so going to his birthday, 116 years old, how did did he die of like just natural causes, or like, I don't want to go in the birth death cycle, but I am. Like, how did he pass away? Like,
he got prostate cancer and didn't really like to go to doctors and didn't know he was sick. He didn't know he had it. And by the time he was getting symptoms and feeling bad, it was too late. It was already traveled through his bones and his body, and that's how he died.
Wow. Probably just wanted it that way anyway. You know what I mean? Just kind of out of it.
I don't think so. I think that he definitely went before his time.
I think
he was still a very creative man, and 73 years old isn't that old anymore.
That's young.
It's
That's
pretty young. So,
wow.
Anyway, that was the story on that.
Well, he's resting there, and you can celebrate his life, 116 years of his life, passed or moved on. To me, he's still there. He's still there. You go to the gallery and you'll find his presence there. So the other thing too, I wanted to say, some of the exhibits still on the display is you've got Louise Serpa's portraits of DeGrazia, which is something really cool to see. And I think it's so cool that her exhibit is going on during his birthday, Yeah.
Yeah, that's still going on. And then the Diego Rivera era is still there. And, of course, the Way of the Cross, which will come down soon.
Yeah, the Way of the Cross is an annual exhibit for those who don't know, but it's an annual exhibit, and Lance has to put it up every year. Otherwise, people will yell at him, and no one's allowed to yell at the Tucson dude. But a new exhibit's coming up. It's going to have to do with pastel work that most people have not seen of Ted DeGrazia, so stay tuned for that. If you go to DeGrazia.org, also follow them on Facebook and Instagram, you'll get alerted to that. So, and if you go on the website, sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a notice on the new exhibit. And I love that you have these, moving exhibits through the years. So, Ted DeGrazia in the studio of Diego Rivera. That exhibit is up until September 3rd, and so is Louise Serpa's Portraits of Ted DeGrazia. So you can keep up with them. Just go to the gallery. That's the main point. Thank you, Lance. It's always good talking with you, Tucson dude.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate it very much.
Everyone, DeGrazia.org. Take care. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Tales of Ted DeGrazia show. This show airs every fourth Sunday. Learn more about DeGrazia Gallery in the Sun at DeGrazia.org. Follow the show at BigBlendRadio.com.